doesn't want me to introduce him.
I've been introduced.
But I'm just going to say a welcome to Bishop Kieran Conry from Arundel and Brighton Diocese, who joins us not only as a learned leader of the church, but as a good friend. You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for coming. It's really good to see so many here, and people that couldn't be here. And hello to those in the room next door, the underprivileged, who are locked out there, where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. But what are you doing? I hope that by the end of the day, we'll all go away from here feeling better. That's all. Feeling better. Think that was all right. That was a good day. I feel better about myself, better about the world, better about the church. That's the point of today. We're not going to change the world today. We'll start that tomorrow. We will. But we're going to talk about, the title I've got is the context in which we operate. And I think it's important to try and understand that, to try and understand it. Say, well, what are we dealing with? Where did we come from? And that's a very important question. Where did we come from? What shaped the church we live in? Because we can't take the church just as a given. Well, this is the way the church is. This is the way the church should be. The church has been shaped by circumstances and tradition and history. And I think we just need to at least dip into that. In the way that the Old Testament was completely rewritten in the light of the experience of the Jews. And the most profound experience they had in the Old Testament was not the Exodus, it was exile in Babylon. And that caused them to completely rethink their image of God, their image of themselves, and their image of the stranger. I think there are things in our history that have caused us to remodel ourselves as church. And one of the most significant, I think, was the Protestant Reformation. Catherine, thank you for being here. I think it's true, because the Protestant Reformation caused us to rephrase the way we expressed ourselves. Because what was happening in the Protestant Reformation was that certain key tenets of Catholic faith were challenged. Certain key ideas, such as the sacrifice of the Mass, the real presence of Christ, the authority of the Pope, and the role of Scripture. And what the Church did, the Catholic Church did, as a result of that, was restate itself. First of all, restate itself physically. And if you go to Rome, Rome is the big post-Reformation Catholic Church. Big churches, full of incredible decoration and richness, to say we are still in business. And the biggest of them, of course, was St. Peter's. St. Peter's is not beautiful at all. It is big. And that's all it is. It is big. It is huge. It's there to say, well, you think you got rid of us? You didn't. We're here. And, but it also caused us then to rephrase our belief in terms of the expression of our faith. Because what we have, I think, after the Reformation, is the notion of faith which is propositional. Faith which is propositional. These are the things we believe. These are the things we believe. And if you ask a Catholic today, what does the church believe? You'd get answers about the primacy of the Pope, the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist, the value of the Mass, the importance of the sacraments, etc., etc. And that was emphasized in the First Vatican Council in 1870. I just need to find that little quote, where one of the very few documents that was produced by the First Vatican Council was a document called Dei Filius, the Son of God. And it was about divine revelation. It's interesting also that the First Vatican Council hasn't actually finished. It was interrupted because the historical context of the First Vatican Council was around 1870, the unification of Italy, led by Garibaldi. And if you're wondering why the biscuit's called Garibaldi, it's true. It's because the makers of Garibaldi were so impressed by what's happening in Italy, they named a biscuit after him. It's the one with the dead flies in. But what was happening there in 1870 was that the church was being stripped of its power. It's being stripped of its territorial power for a start. Huge tracts of the centre of Italy, the Papal States, were simply taken by the new Italian kingdom. And the Pope had his power stripped from him. The church was largely emasculated. Catholic groups bigger than 25 were not allowed to meet. Schools were restricted. Catholic organizations disbanded. And so the church, again, in that historical context, had to restate itself and say, we are still here undefeated. So you have, first of all, papal infallibility, the power of the Pope overstated almost. And then you have this document on Revelation, Dei Filius. And it says that faith, which is the beginning of human salvation, that's important, faith, the beginning of human salvation, is a supernatural virtue, a gift from God. We agree with that. By which we, with the aid and inspiration of the grace of God, again, we're quite happy with that, believes that the things revealed by him are true. And that's where I begin to think, well, hang on a sec, is that the most felicitous expression of faith? Faith believes in the things that are revealed by God. In other words, we believe in the things that God has said and done. Now, when we come to the Second Vatican Council, in a context which is less sort of threatening, the first pastoral council of the church, we have a rephrasing of that notion of faith. The council almost directed itself towards the First Vatican Council, almost commented directly on that, but it didn't. It shied away from it. But instead, in the document on Revelation, Dei Verbum, the Word of God, it talks about revelation as the revealing of God to us to call us into relationship. I think that's a very important part of that document on Revelation. We are called into relationship. And I think that's a very significant thing to try and get hold of. And I think Pope Francis is doing it. He's talking about faith as our relationship with God, knowing a loving God. We had a lovely reading yesterday at a morning prayer. We had a lovely reading this morning as well. But the prayer yesterday, there's a scripture reading yesterday from Galatians. True, I am living here and now, this mortal life, but my real life is the faith I have in the Son of God who loved me. The faith I have in the Son of God who loved me. If you ask Catholics again what they believe in, we believe in the primacy of the popes, etc. Ask an evangelical, charismatic Protestant what you believe in, and they say, God loves me. I'm saved in Jesus. It's not those statements, it's the experience of being loved by God. And I think that must be a key part of our understanding of ourselves as church today. We are called on to recognize God's love for us and the call then to love one another. To move away from that propositional notion of faith. It's not what we believe in, but who we believe in and how we relate to that person. The context, however, in which we see ourselves now, what is that? How is it? What's the world like? The world in which we are called on to proclaim the message, to be evangelizers. I was at the Synod of Bishops in Rome in October, which was hard work. First of all, we sat in the same places every day, and we had to press a little button to register our presence. They knew who wasn't there. They did. And at the end, they gave statistics. They said, well, the overall presence was 76%, and they knew who wasn't there. But we had the same places. And I sat next to a bishop from Zambia, I think, Anthony Borwa, a bishop from Ethiopia, a bishop called Archbishop Mifsin. And the only thing we had in common, really, was that we were Catholics and we spoke English. That was about it. And in front of me for 3 weeks, sat just the way it was laid out, was the prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, Archbishop Gerhard Müller. And in 3 weeks, he never once turned round to say hello. Not the best model of a loving church. But anyway, throughout these 3 weeks of deliberation, very interesting, a constant theme, a constant refrain from nearly everybody was the use of the words secular or secularization. And for many of the African bishops, this became synonymous with globalization, which is an interesting take. The secularization, therefore, becomes a global phenomenon exported from the West and from the Northern Hemisphere. That was the impression. They also had preoccupation with the growth of Islam, which wasn't shared by many from Europe and North America. But the constant theme throughout these interventions was the threat of secularism to our church. And first of all, nobody attempted to define it. Nobody attempted to say what secularism is. And in fact, historically, it is simply the taking from the church of things that belong to it. Here in England, it's first of all our buildings, Henry VIII, and certain other things that belong to the church. And some of that's been very beneficial. So, for instance, the state has taken over teaching, the state has taken over healthcare. So secularism is not an entirely negative phenomenon or experience. And secondly, we need to challenge this notion of aggressive secularism. We're going to see some slides in a minute of interviews out in the street. And just ask yourselves, well, how aggressive is that? How hostile is that? Because our churches are not being burned down, our schools are not being closed, we're allowed to worship, we're not abused in the street. Where is this aggressive secularism? And the worst thing about that is that we begin to believe it. We begin to believe what we're told, and we become disabled by it. Well, how can we possibly be successful because we live in an age of aggressive secularism? First of all, it puts the problem out there, not in here. Well, it's not our fault. We're doing our best, but it's them. They're not listening. They're not listening because we're not speaking their language. First of all, then, I think we need to challenge that and resist that notion that we are overwhelmed by aggressive secularism. I would suggest we're not. But we do live in a post-war age which is significantly different. I'd say from the late 50s onwards, huge changes have taken place in society, which means that we live in a very different way with that burst of economic growth after the war into the 60s. You have a growth, the same growth in the picture of the church. We talk about the 60s as the point from which the church declined. It did, but that was a blip. If you look at the statistics, everything peaked about 1963. Numbers of ordinations, numbers of priests, numbers of religious, numbers of baptisms, numbers of confirmations, and from then on they declined steadily. From then on they declined steadily. Some will look to it and say, that's the fault of the council, because the council was happening in 1963. But that change happened too quickly. It can have nothing to do with the council at all, because the council hasn't even affected us yet, never mind immediately. But it's interesting too that civil marriage has also declined at the same rate. But the situation we're living in, first of all, is nothing new. Can I just have that slide of that painting? Jonathan's going to use this later on for a different reason, but I've got to keep on talking now when he finds the picture. But here, I hope you can see that. It's a painting in the National Gallery in London. Beautiful painting by a man called Michelangelo Merisi, or Caravaggio. And it's the, what's the painting? Supper at Emmaus. Now, there are 4 people in it, interestingly. Who is the 4th? No, Jesus is the first. Let's get that out of the way. Jesus is the first. Oh, who else? The innkeeper. The innkeeper. This man here. These are the 2 disciples. This man is pushing himself out of his chair as he recognizes Jesus. The other one throws his arms wide as he recognizes Jesus. The innkeeper is standing there. You can't see it. He's got his hand in his belt and he's looking on thinking, what is going on? What's all this about? We are in a situation which is not new. It's been there all the time. There are people standing and looking and saying, what's all this about? What are you doing? The situation we're living in is not new. Michael Paul Gallagher, the Jesuit, says that the church has been in crisis since the cock crowed for the 3rd time. And even the figures will indicate that in Liverpool in 1870, in other words, just after huge immigration from Ireland, after the famines, in Liverpool in 1870, practice among the Catholic population was between 27 and 30%. About the same as today. The situation we're living in is not new. It would be arrogant of us, arrogant to think that we are living in the very worst time the church has ever been through. Aren't we privileged? We are so special, we're living in the worst time the church has ever had. We're not. It's the best time the church has had because it's our time. This is the best time to be a Catholic. It's our time, and we've got a great challenge presented to us. But what's happening also, what's been happening, is that we've been shaped, not just by our faith, we've been shaped by the society we live in. And what that has done to us, I think, two things. First of all, it has turned everything into a commodity because of the way we deal with the world. It's interesting that in Italian, the word for a shop is negozio, which is the same word as negotiate. And negotiate comes from two Latin words, negare and otium. Negare is to deny, otium is peace. So shopping and other activity is what takes away our peace. And that has happened to us. It's happened most of all and most tragically on a Sunday. We now have no peace. We have no time to reflect, to be by ourselves, to have ordinary relationships. We package everything. We package our work, our play, and our worship. David has a great phrase, some quote from some American, talking about work, worship, and play. And he says, we worship our work, we work at our play, and we play at our worship. We worship our work, we work at our play, we play at our worship. I mean, look at this place. This is hugely organized and structured relaxation. This. Acres and acres of the countryside given to organized relaxation. And everything is commodified, and religion is commodified as well. We take it down from the shelf, we use it, and we put it back again. It's a commodity like everything else. And what's happened there then is that it becomes like everything else. It becomes disjointed from life. It becomes disjointed from the rest of life. You could say up till the beginning of the 20th century, religion was such a part of the structure of our life and our world that it was there. It was a given. It was constantly present. If you look at a print of old London, just after the Great Fire and the building of Wren's churches, the skyline is dominated by church spires. Go to London now and see what dominates the horizon. Finance. And we talk about our sort of contemporary society in terms of the economy. Losing sight completely of what that original word, oikonomia, meant. Now it becomes simply, are we healthy in terms of finance or not? But our religion has become disjointed from life. And it becomes a problem then to try and relate it to life, especially when we're using big words, like evangelization. And I think one of the ways in which that particular crisis is most evident is in the way that reconciliation or confession has virtually disappeared. Because there, I think, there was a real sense that, but this doesn't actually equate to my reality. I go in, reel off a list of sins, and the priest says a little prayer, I absolve you of your sins, go. That can't be a process of reconciliation. So I think people have lost, if you like, lost faith in that. And that's a sacrament we need to rediscover. I think we need to rephrase it, reshape it, and catechize more about it. But, and the other thing is, of course, that with that growth in the economy and our personal well-being and welfare, we've become quite individual. We've lost all the things that the church speaks about, the notion of family, community, sharing. One of the most insidious phrases, we'll almost touch on it later with some of Jonathan's slides, is that it first used in selling shampoo by some famous film star, when she says at the end of it, you're worth it. Just think about what that means. It sounds fairly innocent. It's not. It is insidiously evil. Go on, you're worth it. It means, go on, you can have it. You deserve it. Have what you like, you deserve it. Don't worry about anybody else. You're worth it. And that's crept into people's consciousness. You're worth it. I can have it. So there's an awful lot to try and struggle with. But it's worth the struggle. And I think that we need to go away. I would be pleased if I would go away from this with three things. First of all, finding a new expression of church, a new way to express ourselves. Up till now, we've tried to mediate our faith through sets of rules that people don't accept and through a language they don't understand. We've got to find a new way of expressing ourselves as church. And Pope Francis is helping us to do this. He's finding the language of compassion, of love, understanding, tolerance, reaching out to people and trying to get into the complexity of their lives. They're saying that we've got to understand people's lives are complex. Everyone here, you look around and think, well, everyone here looks fairly balanced. I'm sure there are no problems in anyone's life here. But scratch the surface anywhere and you'll find complexity and difficulty and struggle. And we've got to get into that and recognise that as people's reality. We can't deal with unreality. We've got to deal with reality. And the Pope is helping us to do that. So first of all, we've got to find a new expression and a new confidence. Not be knocked by the people who say that, religion is on the way out. It's not. There was a bit of a sort of shouting match between Richard Dawkins and a few others. But it just made him very rich. And I think it was Madeline Bunting in The Guardian said that it was a bit like your neighbours in the next flat having an argument. At first you were interested, you leaned against the wall to find out what they're shouting about. Then you became slightly annoyed, you were trying to listen to the radio. And then you became bored and let them get on with it. And we're at that stage now, all right, get on with it, we'll carry on with our religion. So a new confidence to say, no, we are still here and we know what we're doing. And then find, first of all, patience. I said at the beginning that we haven't got to grips with the Second Vatican Council yet. One Archbishop recently said in our conference, we haven't got to grips with the Council of Chalcedon yet. We don't understand the notion of incarnation. So we've got a long way to go to get to grips with Vatican II, but we can do it. And that's part of it today. Just be patient. Be patient. It will happen. It will happen if we work at it slowly. But work at it if we find a new warmth in our churches, in our schools, in our places, homes, a warmth and a joy. We had a Cuthbert Main school here yesterday singing for us. Lovely kids. And many priests would say, well, they're a waste of time waste of money because they go to Catholic schools, we never see them on a Sunday. One of the best interventions in the synod was from the Jesuit general, Nicola Alfonso. Lovely man. And he talked about the failure of the church in the Far East, the failure in Japan and China, where we failed spectacularly. He said what we did was fail to look into the hearts of those people. We went along there and tried simply to impose Christianity on them. We failed to look into their hearts first and see what was there. I think we need to look into the heart of our contemporary society and see what's there and love it. To see what's there and love it and say, we will look after you. What you're looking for is something very basic. We'll show you how to get it. I'll just finish with a little story I told yesterday of going to one of our schools. In fact, there's St. Teresa's in Effingham. Didn't the sisters come down here to Dorchester? Sherborne. Well done, thank you. Anyone here from any of the sisters here? Anyway, lovely school. But I said Mass there, and there were 3 little girls, 8 years old. I said, what's it like being 8? Oh, it's great. And there are 3 teenagers behind them. I said, how old are you? 15. I said, what's it like being 15? Which would you prefer to be, 15 or 8? He went, 8. But 8 was great. And I said to them, just tell me privately, secretly, what are grown-ups like? And they were all shy and giggly and can't tell anyone. I said, don't worry, they can't see who you are. You're facing this way. You'll get away with it. They said, all right, they're boring. I said, are they now? What else are they? They're bossy. Are they now? What else are they? And they're bad-tempered. And that's the way 8-year-olds perceive us. And that's the way many people outside the church will perceive the church. It's boring and bossy and bad-tempered. It is. We've got to shed this image. Be nice and friendly and warm and genuine and truthful and honest and ordinary and wounded and defective and dysfunctional. That's the way we are, like most families. We are a dysfunctional family of dysfunctional families. And that's the reality. But the nice bit was then, I was walking through the grounds, and it might have been the same 3 little girls. And they said, oh, hello. They said, we were walking along. They said, are you married? I said, no. They said, oh, do you get lonely? I said, yes, sometimes. They went, oh, that's sad. You ought to get a dog. But not a wife, I note. But But they express something profound, that they recognize that a basic human need is to be loved. A basic human need is to be loved and to belong somewhere. And I think those are the two great things we can offer to our society from our own dysfunctional background. At least we know what it's like to be loved and to belong somewhere. Thank you very much for staying awake, and we look forward to the rest of the day. And hand on now to Jonathan. And Lou's character, go and see that in London. It is beautiful. Thank you.
This is all being broadcast. I've had one text already, which is a lovely understatement, which just text, he's very good. That's from Monsignor Mark O'Toole. I was kidding, I wasn't really. So the question is, wasn't that a beautiful, erudite, fast-paced talk? You can go onto your computer, watch it and listen to it, and who are you going to invite to do that with you? Hello? We've got 250 homes between us. That's an interesting thought, isn't it? All invite 3 or 4 people to dinner and listen to that. And so it begins, and there's never an end to it. We're going to listen to some people from the street now. I have to tell you that a few people from the Vicariate for Formation have been out on the streets in preparation of today. Intrepid heroes, you'll meet them later. But here is a little fruit of their work, talking to people about what they think about us. Have a little look and see what you make of this. And by the way, be aware, please, all the monitors are working, and I do appreciate these are low screens. So keep your eyes on the screens above you if that helps.
I suppose if that's what they believe in, I think it's good that people have something other than this particular world to believe in.
I would say mostly old people.
Generally positive. I go into the cathedral and say prayers. I say my prayers at night. Honestly, hypocritical. That's because of my own personal experience with religion, both here and in America.
They're very nice people.
I guess I feel that they are looking for something, and that's where they're finding it. Personally, I don't put much stock in religion.
That's their networking, isn't it?
It's each to their own, really, isn't it? Especially nowadays.
Good for them.
Good, mostly good, honest people that want the best in this world.
Each to their own. Everyone's entitled to their own.
A bit boring, I suppose. They all look a bit generic and family goers. Normally old, a lot of old people.
Oh, they're lovely. They're lovely. It's a wonderful community, yes.
All thoroughly nice people as far as I'm aware. Well, that's not to say I haven't met people that go to church that aren't thoroughly nice people.
Varies really, because I've just started going again. It's only because I've lost my father-in-law, so it's kind of like ease. Yes.
I think if they want to go to church, they can go, so I don't mind.
Today, predominantly devout.
Need a psychiatric help.
And some of the nastiest people I've met on the face of this planet have been Christians. And it's awful. And yes, there's a lot of good. There's a lot of good Christians. And the big thing is about morality. If you need a religion to tell you that it's not okay to hurt and kill somebody, then you don't need religion, you need a psychiatrist.
It's not my cup of tea.
Oh.
Is that all right? What puts me off is the style, the whole style of it, the way it's presented, the contradictory message it sends out. And then you've got the whole issue of how clergymen are involved in precarious business. It just seems contradictory, doesn't it?
People that think I ought to go more when I go. Not often enough.
And the more you find out about the religion, the history, I think the more you do, the more you put off. Yeah.
I don't know, it's just, I don't really believe in religion. Science is the thing that guides me, When you can explain it, just don't appeal to me.
The feeling that I have to, I think, is the problem.
I think it's nothing nice going on, There's nothing very interesting in there. I think they should do something better for the young people, to attract them.
Because I see organized religion as a kind of social control of a group of elite people telling the rest of us how to behave.
I don't know, I just wouldn't go to church, I think. I'd rather do it at home where it's more comfortable for me.
That it's all based on lies. The Bible is just like a misrepresentation of the truth, and none of it is at all cohesive in any regard.
I had it rammed down my throat as a child. So.
I don't go to church anymore because it was forced on me up until I was like 13 years old. So I just don't go anymore. It's just out of choice. I just don't want to go anymore. I believe in it, but I don't believe in it at the same time. I sort of pick bits out of it.
What's good or bad?
And I think that if you practice Christianity, which is what I would do, you can do that outside a building. You don't actually have to go.
Various things that occurred in my life.
I've never been to the church, so I never was part of the church, so...
If it's a psychic crutch that helps people get along, why not?
Yeah, if you believe in that, I think it gives you some sort of hope and something to work towards, but if you don't, then not really. But yeah.
It's a set of rules that life wouldn't be worth living without, Yeah.
It's a good basis to create laws for society on.
What's good about religion? It gives people, I suppose, a sense of purpose. It gives them a reason to believe in values, and I don't know, I suppose at a time it was a useful way of controlling groups of people.
I think it's got some very good morals throughout all religions, and my personal belief is that through some religions there's more problems caused by religion than there is good.
It's the rules of life to be followed and not deviated from.
Not really, unless you want wars.
I think it's just a bit of ease, and we go so we can go and talk to people.
I can't see anything that it's done at all for society. That could not have been done without it.
Well, I suppose it's good for people to have that kind of drive to aim their lives at Jesus if that's what they're into, but not for me.
As it gives something for people to believe in. It gives people hope. Yeah.
What I think is good about religion, it's a support of certain people that need that sort of support. No, everybody's killing everybody else in the name of their religion.
The media portrays it as all doing bad, but I think it's trying to do good, but not that successfully at the moment.
The person next to you wants to know what you're thinking, so just ask them. 2 minutes, just 2 minutes. Quick conversation. Okay. You lovely people, I know you want to stop. Thank you for talking to each other. There's an awful lot of energy in here, and not a lot of air. We are very blessed, aren't we, to have such wonderful speakers this morning. And Bishop Kieran, just on behalf of everyone, thank you for that fabulous 3/4 of an hour. Thank you. And what I also want to say is a quick thank you to Jonathan and Sancha, who dared to ask those questions. But